After reading Dragon Ball Super Chapter 97, I came out of it with two things. Number one, Toyotaro took a perfectly good movie, a perfectly decent Dragon Ball movie, and I don't know, man. I think he may have ruined this shit. He may have made it 10 times worse than what it was, and that's because he's stretching the hell out of it in the new manga. And number two, what Piccolo tries to do in this chapter alone could not only be seen as illegal in certain states, but across humanity as a whole, it's typically looked down upon. But it's something that I would have never seen if I had not read the manga, because the movie doesn't showcase any of this. The chapter begins with Goten and Trunks charging at Cell Max, and a bunch of goofiness ensues where nobody's taking this situation seriously. Like, this is a being that is stronger than Super Saiyan Blue, that Goku and Vegeta could have a problem with, and is literally having a tantrum right now and doesn't understand what the hell is going on, let alone what it is. So I feel like this should be taken a lot more seriously. Thankfully, the movie does take appropriate seriousness to the situation that's going on right now, and it doesn't make it lighthearted. It doesn't goof around with it to a certain extent. There is some silliness, but not to this level. But Goten and Trunks are 100% trying to run that fade with Cell Max, even though they don't really stand any sort of chance, and they attack Cell Max in coordinated fashion, attacking, striking, and they go in coordination and like smack him in the face. And I'm just gonna take this as they caught Cell Max by surprise because of what's said after this. But the most interesting aspect, and the only reason that the Dragon Ball Superhero prequel saga even exists, is shown in this chapter, and that is because Dr. Hito, he used Goten and Trunks as the template to create the Gammas. He created those two based on the design of Goten and Trunks, Saiyaman 1, Saiyaman 2. That is interesting. That's a cool little side note, and I like that they are androids that were inspired by Saiyans. I think that is pretty cool. But at the end of the day, I feel like that could have been its own thing. Maybe as a flashback, if we just skip this arc altogether, and giving us like a flashback arc where we see Goten and Trunks being heroes. So the Gammas work with the Saiyaman to try to coordinate attacks to damage Cell Max at some level, which I don't understand why they're doing this, when we find out a little bit later in this chapter that there is a completely different tactic that they should be using. But Goten and Trunks finally realize that Cell Max is well beyond their league and they need to fuse, and of course we're going to be getting the fusion that was promised. The only change that us fans were looking forward to for this arc, where we actually get a Gotenks that is an adult and that is a proper fusion. Of course that's the way they're gonna run it. I mean, they're changing all these other little tiny things. I don't think that Veku is that important to the story, so of course they changed it, and this is a highlight of the chapter. Okay, so we just get Veku, but worse. Because not only do we see it coming, but he also gets 2 seconds of screen time, and that's basically it. And they wasted another golden opportunity to have an actually cool change. But before we get Veku, we get shown that Cell Max is completely different than what any of us actually thought that he was. And it's something that's not really showcased in the anime, in the movie, but in the manga, with all these explanations just being thrown out there, we get an explanation that that monster, we weren't seeing that kind of speed a moment ago. And they're remarking on the fact that at first, when Goten and Trunks and the Gammas were fighting against Cell Max, he was sloppy. He was not getting used to his body. This is especially true because Trunks says right in the beginning of the chapter that, hey, Gamma guy, that big bruiser just woke up, right? it kind of feels like he's not used to moving that body around. So after Cell Max has been fighting for a little bit, Gohan says that his power keeps on growing and he's getting used to fighting. That's why he's moving more like a fighter. It took him very little time to learn this stuff. But what does all this mean? All this means is that Cell Max, and this is something that, again, is just showcased here in the manga very, very prominently, he is an infant. This is a big-ass baby. He was in a cryo chamber, like a womb. He was released early, basically crying, having a tantrum, attacking everything in sight. He was literally just born. When he's born, he was sluggish, wasn't used to his body, just like all infants are, but quickly grew to understand his body the more he fights. So all these people are just attacking Cell Max and trying to fight him. So even though it's a good argument to say that Cell Max, when he was born, woke up and chose violence, he really just attacked Dr. Hito, who is his creator, who he probably has a lot of reason to resent because Dr. Hito created him to be mind controlled, and that is when the Gammas attacked him. And so he is now basically defending himself, and that is what the battle is all about. This is really not focused on in the anime, but here in the manga, it is clear he is a baby. And so if you really think about it, this is really an unfair fight. And what happens next, again, is frowned upon by the rest of society. Because unlike the anime where the accidental hit to his head and then the special beam cannon from Gohan is what kills him in the head, that's just a headshot. That's just part of the battle. Here, though, it is explained that there is a shutoff switch in his head, and they have to attack his head and damage it, and once his head is broken, he will explode, killing anybody in the vicinity. Usually the guy that's nearest who actually impacted his head the most. So this dude has a shutoff switch, and that's what every single Z fighter here is trying to attack. Trying to kill Cell Max, the baby, trying to abort this dude. The entire fight after that point takes a very sinister turn as they really do push Cell Max back and leaving it to Piccolo to use his abilities, and right now he is in that golden Piccolo form, to attack the weak spot of Cell Max, but he doesn't do any damage. Literally, Piccolo tried to delete Cell Max, unalive him, and Cell Max literally was just born moments ago. Cell Max automatically explodes in this sort of defensive last stand ditch effort type of thing, and once he does that, everybody kind of retreats, and you guys can see it right here. Cell Max is just standing there. He's not chasing them. He's not destroying the whole area. He's not going to the nearest population centers. Honestly, Cell Max to me really isn't a bad guy if you see it in this way. If you see it in the way from the manga, he isn't really a bad guy. He's just Frankenstein's monster. And the ending cliffhanger is that one of the Gammas is going to have to sacrifice themselves to break through, and I'm assuming that's going to crack his skull, and the next chapter is going to be that, plus more than likely we're going to be getting the finale of Beast Gohan, basically one-shotting him through the head, maybe some action from Beast Gohan, and then we'll truly be done with this arc, I believe, hopefully. But let me know in the comment section below, am I reaching, or is Cell Max not really a bad guy?